It's a mix of good news and bad. On the fire front, this is Now You Know. I'm Rob Snow.
The top news stories
and conversations that matter to you.
This is Now You Know with Rob Snow on News Radio.
Human activity. That's what authorities in Nova Scotia think caused a large fire on the edge of Halifax this week. Scott Tingley is the head of forest protection for Nova Scotia's Department of Natural Resources. He said they have no idea who started it.
The cause of the fire was related to human activity. It was an open fire. There was nobody in the area when the crews arrived on scene. That makes it impossible to hold the person or people responsible to account. And yeah, that's frustrating to everyone. But
Can you say like the location of the start of the fire more precisely?
No, I can't. I don't have any details. It is an ongoing investigation, and there's no
This is
details.
the Susie's Lake fire, right?
Yeah. Yeah, correct. Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have any additional details other than it was human activity. Yeah.
Sorry, can you share the specific location of where that open pit fire was found?
I don't have that to share today. No, just we can share that it was human activity, but it's an ongoing investigation, so some of those details I don't have to provide.
The status of that fire is that it's being held. Fire crews are back there today. Tingley said his department is responding to one or more calls a day about possible wildfires. It was a week ago yesterday. The government of Nova Scotia banned almost all activities in wooded areas until October 15th or until there's a change in the weather. And despite some pushback, Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston has had no second thoughts about his decision.
I get that people want to go for a hike or want to go for a walk in the woods with their dog, but how would you like to be stuck in the woods while there's a fire burning around you? I don't think anybody would want that either. So be smart, be human, don't look for loopholes. An out of control forest fire is a terrifying thing. So treat this situation with the seriousness that it deserves. We are. Certainly as a government. Since last week's announcement on restrictions, 12 fines have been issued. It's certainly my hope that every single one of those is fully prosecuted and collected. It's just too serious of a situation right now.
Those fines for violating the restrictions on going into the woods are in excess of $25,000. Premier Houston described the pushback against the restrictions as coming from people who aren't even from Nova Scotia.
I guess I find it remarkable the interest in traveling in Nova Scotia woods by people who aren't in Nova Scotia and probably haven't been here very much in their life. So we're only concerned with keeping people safe. We'll do what's necessary to protect lives, and that's what we're doing in this case. Just I don't really have time for any type of conspiracy theories or. We haven't had any rain in Nova Scotia since June. So the thoughts and opinions of people who haven't been in Nova Scotia, who don't know what it's like in Nova Scotia right now, who probably have never been in the woods in Nova Scotia in their life, they're not a top. The thoughts and concerns of those people are not a top priority for me right now. My top priority is just keeping Nova Scotians safe.
In New Brunswick, there are 16 fires, the biggest one in Miramichi. That's been burning for more than a week. It's still out of control, but moving away from populated areas. The fire near Moncton is contained, and an evacuation advisory has been lifted. But Premier Susan Holt of New Brunswick says a new concern is the need to conserve water.
Conserve water. We are seeing significantly dry conditions. We know people have wells that they're worried about. There are communities, there's streams and riverbeds that do not have the kind of water that we're used to here in New Brunswick. So it would be helpful if all New Brunswickers take steps to conserve water. And maybe choose recreational activities that are new. It's a good time to go for a swim, maybe to try pickleball. Who knows? But we know that campfires are summer tradition. The risk is high, and we're asking you not to do that right now.
A few days after Nova Scotia issued a ban on activities in the woods, New Brunswick did the same thing, although it didn't impose $25,000 fines. But in New Brunswick, there's no indication those restrictions will be lifted anytime soon.
Whether it's your side-by-side or your four-wheeler, those hot exhaust engine pipes can be a challenge. They can cause sparks and other things. And so we really don't want people on Crown lands right now, so that we can focus our attention where it's most needed.
And to add to that, it's another opportunity to us to be able to thank New Brunswickers for being responsible, that the leaders of the ATV Association, they get it too. They've told their members to go find something else to do.
Across Newfoundland and Labrador, there are 9 fires. The worst of those is in Conception Bay North. That has forced 3,000 people from their homes. The fire near St. John's hasn't grown in size, and there are no new evacuation alerts. Earlier in the week, Premier John Hogan of Newfoundland and Labrador said it would be difficult to ban ATVs from the woods in his province because people need to use them. That has now changed, and ATV use in the woods is banned until at least Sunday.
There's a bit of a learning curve to this. I think over the next couple of days, we'll be understanding certainly of individuals who may be in wooded areas and need to come and go from their work or from their family members to look after them. So we'll certainly appreciate that, and that's why we kind of made sure we were only making this decision when it was felt was necessary. So there will be a little bit of work to do with individuals as we go through this process. But again, keep in mind, this is only in place as of now till Sunday. There is some rain in the forecast. Let's not get our hopes up too much. It's not a lot of rain, but it is some rain. We take the good news when we can. And as I said, the fires, they're continuing to be worked on here. We have more air assets coming. We'll continue to look for as many as we can across the country. Maybe we'll get through this sooner than later, and we won't have to deal with that situation. But we have to use everything available to us right now.
This is now being labeled as the second worst wildfire season on record for Canada. There have been more than 4,300 fires this year. They burned 7.3 million hectares. The worst wildfire season in Canadian history was just 2 years ago in 2023. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know on News Radio.
Critical thinking is not dead.
Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Returns on News Radio.
Well, he's my friend on the right side of things. With us every week is Michael Taube, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Welcome back.
Hey, Rob. How are you doing today?
It's great. Thank you. Great to hear from you. I want to pick up kind of where we left off last week. We talked about Nova Scotia Premier Tim Houston banning people from the woods because of the tinder dry conditions and the fire risk across his province. It's certainly been a week of debate and discussion on that topic. Premier Houston had a news conference yesterday, stands by his decision and really says he has no time for criticism, especially from people who don't even live in Nova Scotia. Let's listen to a little bit of what the Premier said yesterday.
I guess I find it remarkable, the interest in traveling in Nova Scotia woods by people who aren't in Nova Scotia and probably haven't been here very much in their life. So we're only concerned with keeping people safe. We'll do what's necessary to protect lives, and that's what we're doing in this case. Just I don't really have time for any type of conspiracy theories, or we haven't had any rain in Nova Scotia since June. So the thoughts and opinions of people who haven't been in Nova Scotia, who don't know what it's like in Nova Scotia right now, who probably have never been in the woods in Nova Scotia in their life, they're not a top. The thoughts and concerns of those people are not a top priority for me right now. My top priority is just keeping Nova Scotians safe.
Okay. So you're in the center of the universe there, Toronto, Ontario, Canada. He couldn't give a you-know-what about what you think about this.
Mm-hmm.
You're defending your position from last week, though. You still think it goes too far, this banning people from the woods. Why is that?
Yeah, well, I couldn't care less what he thinks. I mean, that's the nature of being an opinion columnist, which I and others do. It means that we have our opinions. We state them as the best of our ability as fact, using research, using opinion, using analysis, using experience in some cases. And irrespective of where a person does or does not live, Rob, it doesn't make a difference. I comment and have commented for almost 30 years on many issues where I don't live in a particular province, city, country, town, etc. And that doesn't mean that I don't have the ability, like others, to make a comment about it, whether you agree or not. That's the whole nature of intellectual discourse. You talk about issues, you discuss issues, you agree to disagree in certain cases. And quite frankly, I think that, Tim Houston, the Premier of Nova Scotia, is, he's frustrated, obviously, that his province is in the press all the time. I understand that. But to then basically just disregard everyone's comments, it's his decision, but I don't have to pay attention to it, nor do you, nor do the listeners. If they choose to, that's fine. My position hasn't changed. It's exactly the same as it was before, which is that safety and security are important. Caution is important during this dry spell and the extreme hot weather that Nova Scotia, parts of Atlantic Canada, and other parts of the country are facing. But again, I just do not agree with his decision to ban walks in the woods and issue $25,000 bans if you quote unquote break it. I think it's an unnecessary move. I think it's an example of government overreach and interference. And I think it's poor policy, period.
He said yesterday, the Premier also said they've issued a dozen fines, $25,000 each. We know now with court costs, victim fees, everything else, it's almost $29,000. It's like $28,800 if you get one of these. What do you think about the level of the fine?
The level. I obviously know why they put it so high. They were trying to use it as a deterrent, but at the same time, it's just irresponsible to put it at that level. Again.
Okay.
Warnings, perfectly acceptable. If you want to put out literature, discussions, email blasts, whatever, to discuss it, that's fine. Certainly a one and done is just silly. And as well, while people have suggested correctly that you don't have to walk in the woods, you can walk in other parts of Nova Scotia quite properly and nothing will happen. At the same time, there are a lot of people who live in rural areas and are close to the woods and choose to walk in there for whatever reason, not to cause mischief, not to cause harm. They want to do it. And again, we live in a free society. And if people choose not to walk in the woods, that's perfectly fine. That's perfectly acceptable. And I'm sure lots of Nova Scotians are not going to. That's fine. If people choose to, the government's ability to restrict the free movement of people is wrong-headed. And I'm not saying this because I'm a conservative. I'm saying this as a person who lives in a democracy. I'm sure there are liberals, even if they're not that vocal, who agree with it. Yet there have been, and maybe you've talked about in your show, Rob, I'm not sure, there have been a ton of explosions from people that I do know, and in some cases I don't know, acting basically like they're the managers of public opinion, and they're going to touch society as they see fit because it doesn't fit within their worldview. That somehow we all have to come together as a country and community to defend people and ensure that this ban is properly protected. I want, obviously, the protection of people, and I want the protection of communities. I do not believe with government bans with enormous fines attached to them.
Okay, we'll be right back. We'll talk about Pierre Poilievre's road back to the House of Commons. That starts on Monday with his by-election in Battle River Crowfoot, where one of the storylines has been the longest ballot initiative. Michael was writing about that this week in the National Post. We'll ask him for some details. This is News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
We're back with Michael Taube, syndicated columnist, speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper. By-election day in Battle River Crowfoot, the riding in Alberta, is Monday. Pierre Poilievre, of course, hopes to win that by-election and get back into the House of Commons in time for the fall sitting. This is also a by-election that features 204 candidates that are part of the longest ballot initiative. You wrote in the National Post this week that you find it annoying and wasteful, but not undemocratic. Why do you say that?
Yeah, correct. It's not. I mean, it is annoying and wasteful because obviously you have these massive ballots that have to be published of 214 candidates, of which 204, as you correctly pointed out, belong to the longest ballot committee, or as some people call longest ballot initiative. It doesn't matter which it is. And basically, long story short, the longest ballot committee has been around for several years. It first sort of popped up in 2019, where it was linked with the old Rhinoceros Party of Canada, which is basically just a joke party. And what they tried to do is they tried to flood ballots in various ridings. They'd mostly done it in federal ridings, although one Ontario riding was targeted. And the whole point of it is the longest ballot committee is basically an activist movement. And what they represent is they're critical of Canada's first past the post electoral system, or the system that we use for voting today. They believe that there should be a replacement of it with some form of proportional representation, whatever they so choose. It could be AB, STV, etc. I don't know. They've changed their minds a few times, and some candidates have different opinions on that, but they want proportional representation, which is obviously used in countries' elections around the world. So basically, the simple thing is they feel it should shift to a model of proportional representation. So they flood the ballots with the first past the post electoral system we have to, well, obviously to attract attention and to cause a bit of mischief, shall we say. Generally speaking, not much has happened. Most of the longest ballot committee's attempts, to disrupt an election have had little to no effect. They have claimed in part, and I don't know if they claimed a large part or small part, but in part, they claimed that the scalp of Pierre Poilievre in his riding of Carleton was caused by the fact that there were many, many candidates for the LBC running in that riding. But in effect, what I found in my National Post column, which ran last week, was it didn't at all. The percentage of the total vote that they received was very minor as compared to, it was basically 0.01% of the total vote, which is next to nothing.
Right.
That's, again, it's not zero, but it's not much of anything either. So the question really is, in that case, what is the point of it? But as I said, it's not undemocratic because we allow third-party candidates and parties to run, single-issue candidates run as well. And if we truly believe in parliamentary democracy in Canada, we should allow them too.
Okay. Write-in ballot. It's going to be interesting. I wonder how many ways people can spell Poilievre.
It won't matter as long as it's determined.
Poilievre. But you are allowed to misspell it as long as it, I guess, looks something like that. They will accept it.
And undoubtedly they will. We know this is going to happen because his last name, much like my last name, is hard to spell.
Okay, Michael, we'll speak to you next week. Thank you.
You bet. Take care,
All
Rob.
the best. Bye-bye. Yeah, Michael Taube, syndicated columnist and speechwriter for former Prime Minister Stephen Harper, with us every Thursday. Professor Ian Lee is back from his European adventure. He's going to join us next, right after the latest breaking news here on News Radio.
Now you know with Rob Snow continues on News Radio.
Well, he's back in Canada. He's been gearing up for another school year, shaping the minds of the young and impressionable. Professor Ian Lee is with the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. How are you today?
I'm doing very well, Rob. Thanks very much. Just got back a couple of days ago. Still jet lagged, but all raring to go, and classes are about to start right after Labor Day.
Okay. I want to do something a little bit different today. I want to talk a little bit about the area we've called home for decades, Canada's capital, and we love it when people from all across the country come and visit Ottawa, lovely Canada's capital. But I was also thinking, we've got Trump taking over the DC police for his own reasons. He says crime is running rampant. He can do that because it's a congressional district, of course. I was also thinking there was news about our NHL club. It's been in negotiations with this federal government agency called the National Capital Commission to try and find a spot downtown, this little speck of land, to build a new arena. And that's something that's taken years and years and years and years. Here in Ottawa, we love government. You have said that in the past. We love government. We love to be governed. Okay? You have the federal government that has enormous influence over how Ottawa looks. But you also have a municipal government in Ottawa because we're on the border of Quebec. You have a municipal government in Gatineau. You have a provincial Quebec government to deal with. You have an Ontario provincial government to deal with. And then you have this Uber agency, the National Capital Commission of the federal government. You and I have talked about this in the past, but I can't remember your opinion on this. The case has been made, we should make Ottawa, Canada's capital, a capital district or a federal district, not unlike Washington, D.C., that it would streamline a lot of government in Ottawa. What do you think about that idea?
I've advocated this, Rob, for quite some time now. I did an interview with John Ibbotson in the Globe and Mail about 2-3 years ago, and he said, what's the problem with Ottawa? They can't seem to get anything done. And the line I use, which I think is a very accurate statement, is there are too many cooks in the kitchen. There isn't, people outside of Ottawa don't realize this. There's no one authority in charge of the National Capital Region, which is the city of Ottawa and the city of Gatineau on the Quebec side, which is literally just across the river. They're twin cities. And so you have these, people don't realize there's these multiple agencies. Public Works Canada is a government department created by Parliament. And they are the largest single landlord, bar none, in Ottawa and the city of Gatineau. They own hundreds and hundreds of properties, big, tall office buildings. Then you've got a Treasury Board, because the Treasury Board is the manager of the public service at the federal level. Then you've got the city of Ottawa, you've got the city of Gatineau, then you've got the National Capital Commission. And so we are radically over-governed. And so what happens is you get checkmate. So, one department says to, the NCC wants to do something, and then the Public Works Canada, no, you can't do that because these are our buildings, so you go away. Or the city of Gatineau says, wait a minute, we've got Quebec and the government of Quebec. So you have all of these different jurisdictions all fighting and competing with each other and stepping on each other's toes and checkmating each other. And I have come to the conclusion over many, many years, and I've lived here all my life, is that what we need to do is create a federal district. You're quite right, a federal district like Australia did, like Washington did, and have one singular authority running it that would deal with everything. So there would be no longer a city of Ottawa, no longer a city of Gatineau with a city council. There wouldn't be an NCC. There would be one unitary authority and reporting to a crown minister.
Okay. Well, let me ask you this then. What about things that they do in big cities all across Canada? Like who's running the municipal transit system? Who's plowing the snow? Who's picking up the garbage? All of this stuff.
Right.
The federal government?
That's a very, very good point. Let me just do a sidebar for one moment about Trump. And I'm not here to defend Trump whatsoever, but I get friends all the time contacting me in emails. How on earth can anybody like Trump, and why on earth the Americans like him? And I've said over and over, he's getting things done. For 60 years, everyone said you can't do anything about illegal immigration on the southern border of the United States. Everybody said it. Don't you understand? There's rule of law. There's these rules. There's these checks and balances. In 5 months, Trump has stopped 1 million people a year coming over that border forever and ever. It's down to a trickle. And now I'm not advocating what he did, but to people who say, oh, it can't be done, there's all these rules, all these agencies, arguing with each other. He did it in 5 months, and he's doing this now in D.C. People say there's nothing we can do about the homeless people and the fentanyl in the streets. It's just we got to accept it. I hear this from the mayor of Vancouver and the mayor of Ottawa and the mayor of Toronto. Now Trump's going to go in and do it. Now, yes, he's doing it with very tough love, and he's probably breaking some laws. I'm not advocating that. But my point is, people are sick and tired of hearing excuse after excuse after excuse from mayor after mayor. We're seeing it right now, Rob. In Ontario, the number of houses being built is going down, not up. And mayor after mayor and city housing after city housing department in Ontario are stymieing and blocking and thwarting new housing construction, which we desperately need for our young people. And so people are saying enough is enough. And that's why this backlash is setting in that you see with people like Trump being elected here and in countries in Europe. And what I keep saying to my progressive liberal friends is, that great line by Pogo, we have met the enemy, and it is us. Progressive liberals are electing the Trumps of the world and the Marine Le Pens in France and the Kurt Wilders in Austria. These people are being elected because ordinary voters are just fed up with all the finger pointing and bureaucracy and red tape and the refusal to solve problems.
Okay. When we come back, we're going to switch gears a little bit. I mean, you've done a lot of traveling recently. We'll have to talk about, it looks every bit like there's going to be a strike at Air Canada. We'll talk about what the staff say is they're doing unpaid work. They should be paid for work that they do, and they're not getting paid right now. That's the big sticking point in this labor dispute.
Yes.
Ian Lee is with us, Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University. This is News Radio.
There is no question Rob won't get answered.
Now You Know with Rob Snow continues
on News Radio.
Back with Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University. It appears there's going to be a strike at Air Canada. The Air Canada executives had a news conference today. They're winding down their operations, now making alternate arrangements. The big sticking point here, according to the union, is unpaid work. That the staff on the airplane, stewards, the stewardesses, they only start getting paid when the plane takes off, and then they stop getting paid when the plane arrives at the gate. Well, there's a lot of things that these staff members do both before and after that. It doesn't seem fair to me. In fact, it reminds me of the coal mining days of old when miners didn't start getting paid until they actually reached the coal face. What do you think about this? Do you think these employees have a point? What do you think?
Rob, I do believe they have a point. I fly Air Canada. I've been a customer of Air Canada since the 1980s. I just flew back from Europe, as you know. And so I think that sympathy is on the side of the workers, the flight attendants at Air Canada, the 10,000. But, I do see often labor relations can be very difficult, because both sides have a point. The airlines say we got to make money, or the employer has to make money. They can't go, lose money. But then workers have a equal legitimate point. In this instance, I do see a fairly straightforward solution. And I'm not trying to say it's simplistic or simple, but it's a very straightforward solution. What the Carney government can do, the Minister of Labor could do, is simply say, look, we're going to instruct the Canadian Labour Relations Board to suspend the strike, to end the strike, and by extending the collective agreement by 90 days or something, as they did in the post office just last December with the post office labor disruption. And they can simultaneously announce that the Government of Canada promises to introduce legislation in Parliament to amend the Federal Labor Act, which will ban unpaid work. They just simply legislate this by revising the Labor Standard Act to prohibit the use of unpaid labor, so that they have to negotiate that labor that they provide now for unpaid, which is unpaid, shall become part of collective bargaining and must be paid at the prevailing rate in the agreement. So I do see a way out of this.
This is a trend, though, for liberal governments. They always say they're labor-friendly, we're the friends of labor, but I don't know if they're going to do this in the Air Canada, with the Air Canada situation, do what they did with Canada Post. But you're right, they did that with Canada Post. Of course, the union didn't want that to happen. The union wanted to put maximum pressure on the employer by staying out. They did this with port workers as well. They intervened in a strike by the port workers. Right?
That's right.
Do you have the right to strike in this country or not?
Well,
Professor?
Rob, I'm glad you brought that up. I really appreciate that. I wrote an article about 10 or 12 years ago called Striking Out, kind of a cute little title. And what I did, and I'm grateful to the Library of Parliament of Canada, the researchers there are just awesome. I went to them because I knew I didn't have the resources to look up every last bill that had ever been tabled in Parliament since 1950. I don't have that kind of time or resources. I said, listen, I'm doing research on legislation back to work, where the Parliament of Canada has legislated workers back to work. Can you give me a list of all the bills tabled in Parliament since 1950? They did. They were amazing and astonishing. 36 times from 1950 to 2015, workers had been legislated back to work by both Liberal governments and Conservative governments. The all-time the champion at legislating striking workers back to work was Pierre Elliott Trudeau's government, the Liberal government, because they've been in power for 16 years. So very quickly, what I found was when you said, okay, who's getting legislated back to work? 34 of the 36 times they were in the transportation sector. Port of Montreal, Port of Vancouver, Pearson Airport, CN, CP, Air Canada, WestJet, you name it, Canada Post, you name it, they got legislated back. So where I'm going with this is I said, you legally have the right to strike on paper in this country, but Parliament has determined effectively you do not have the right to strike if you are in the transportation sector because you're too essential, because this country is so large, so huge. We're completely dependent on transportation to move goods, services, and people. So we have a contradiction between what the law says and the Charter of Rights says and the Supreme Court says and the will of Parliament.
But nevertheless, Professor Ian Lee, the diehard capitalist, is siding with the unionized cabin crew at Air Canada, just so I have you on the record there. Okay. When we come back, just a quick comment. There's a group, Generation Squeeze. This is out of British Columbia. They were the ones advocating for a tax on home equity. They're calling for reforms to OAS. They say OAS is too generous to affluent seniors. I would say you are an affluent senior. Should we claw back more of your OAS? I'll be right back with Professor Ian Lee on that here on News Radio.
You have questions.
Now you know with Rob Snow has the answers.
On News Radio.
Just a few more minutes with Professor Ian Lee from Carleton University. Generation Squeeze is out of UBC. They advocate on behalf of millennials, Gen Z, with calling for things like a home equity tax, for example. It's now demanding, as part of the budget consultations that are underway, reforms to old age security, OAS, which is not funded the way CPP is funded through contributions, but rather directly from tax dollars. The bill for that is going to explode, and it says OAS is too generous to affluent seniors. You're an affluent senior. Do you agree? Are you getting too much in old age security?
Rob, this may shock you. I do agree. I do not agree with them about taxing home equity with a capital gains tax. First off, I don't think it's feasible. There's 68% of Canadians own their homes, and I just think you'll have a riot of 68% of the Canadians going crazy if you want to go after their houses. But the OAS is a completely different issue. And to those seniors who have said, well, I paid for it, it's my right. No, they did not. They do not pay premiums, as you just noted, for old age security. It is out of general taxation, number one. Number two, the boomers, the people over 65, have about 75% of the wealth in Canada today. That's StatsCan data. And the OAS is vastly too generous, far too generous, and I've argued it should be ended, terminated by rolling it in, folding it into the Guaranteed Income Supplement. The Guaranteed Income Supplement is income tested, and I would suggest that it should be set at, let's say, $80,000. Above $80,000, you don't get OAS or GIS. Below $80,000, you get it. In other words, we're going to give it, I argue, to those who need it, low-income people, modest-income people, and not affluent boomers. And it's just outrageous because the bill is up exceeding $35 billion a year, and we're paying it to the people who least need help in our society, and it's being paid by young people, many of whom can't even find a job, but they're paying it through their HST, VAT taxes, and so on. So we've got to reform the old age system in our country to turn it into means-tested, payable only to those who need help above the age of 65.
Yeah, can you imagine, though, running on that as a politician?
For the first time, Rob,
you can imagine the attack ads, whoever it is, Mark Carney or, Pierre Poilievre is coming after old age security. Yeah. Like it would be death. It would be political suicide to run on something like that.
Let me throw a counter to you. For the first time, I think it was a year ago or two ago, the Gen X and Gen Z, the young people, exceeded the absolute number of boomers in Canada. So in other words, the boomers are becoming a minority in Canada because they're dying off one by one, and the young people are growing. So my point is maybe the time has come where the majority, there's lots of boomers who would agree with me, there's lots of boomers who will not agree with me, but there is a ton of young people who will agree with me, and maybe there's enough votes now to do what I'm saying, reform old age security, to take it away from the affluent people who don't deserve it and need it.
Okay. Well, it's great to have you back, opinionated as ever. Look forward to speaking to you soon.
My pleasure, Rob. Thanks very much.
Get caught up next week, yeah. From the Sprott School of Business, where he is Associate Professor of Management, and he is getting ready to start another academic year. He primarily teaches as part of the MBA program at Carleton University, the Sprott School of Business at Carleton University. That is Ian Lee, and great to get caught up with him. Talkback is coming up right after the news. Our topic today, intergenerational households. There's a major report from Statistics Canada on this today that shows more than half of Canadians, the 20-somethings, Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 years old, close to 60% of them, still living at home with their parents. We're going to talk about that when we start Talkback right after the news on News Radio.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talkback. It's 2 hours of debate and discussion on the big issues of the day. Today's topic, intergenerational households. Leaving the nest. Older children living at home with their parents. Let's start with some questions. How old were you when you stopped living with your parents? How old were you when you could finally say, I live independently? I live all on my own. How old were you? 19, 20, 21, 22? Older than that? Younger than that? And tell us what that was like for you. What were you doing at the time? Were you going to school? Were you working? Were you renting an apartment? Did you buy a house? Did you move out of your parents' house only after you got married? Did you go right from your parents' house to a new place with your spouse? We're just curious. How old were you? And what was going on in your life at the time that made that possible? I'm living on my own. I'm making my own way. 1-833-668-2577. 1-833-668-2577. The reason we're bringing this up today is because there's a major new study. It's been released by StatsCan today. Probably be some news reports about it tomorrow. It's all about Canadians in their early to mid-20s still living with their parents. 20% of the population. Now, this household dynamic it's about 7 million people in the country. They live in what StatsCan calls an intergenerational household, a household with at least one parent and an adult child over the age of 20. And for Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24, it's more than half live with their parents. Way more than half. It's 57%. 57%. Now, most of them are going to school. It's not like they're lazabouts. But still, 57%. 20 to 24-year-olds still live with their parents. But most of them are going to school. Get a load of this. More than 1/3 of Canadians between the ages of 50 and 54 are parents who have an adult child living at home. It's 35% of Canadians between the ages of 50 and 54, they have an older child living at home. I wonder how many of them thought that by the time they would hit their, early to mid 50s, they would still have children living at home. This report says there's a gender skew to this as well. A majority of these 20-somethings still living with their parents are men, young men. And a majority of the parents who have these adult children living at home are women. So you think of it this way. More mothers live with their adult sons than, say, fathers who live with their adult daughters. I wonder why that would be. It's not a new thing, Canadians in their 20s still living with their parents. It's part of everyday life, maybe part of your life right now. But it is a change. It's a change in the last 40 years. Now it's almost 60% of 20 to 24-year-olds still living with their parents. Back in 1981, it was closer to 40%. And it's kind of been on the rise ever since. In 1990, it was about 47%. By the year 2000, it reached 50%. Now we're here close to 60%. The reasons will sound very familiar for a lot of people. High cost of housing, sky-high rents, trying to save for a down payment on a home, probably the biggest factor. Saving money on housing, the cost of living. More students attending college and university, staying in school longer. Decades ago, there may have been a stigma to this. So, there's Johnny, 23, 24 years old, still living at home with his mom. Sleeps in the same bedroom that he did when he was a child. Well, now, because this is so commonplace, does that stigma really fit anymore? Here's what we want to ask you with this trend. That has been firmly in place for many years now. Children in their 20s still living at home with their parents. Generally speaking, just generally speaking. Do you think it's beneficial or harmful for these Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 to be still living at home with their parents? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. What would you say? Would you say it's beneficial because they're saving money? They're saving money on things like housing. Put a little money away for a down payment. They can concentrate on their studies, help them get a better job. They're helping around the house, helping to pay the bills. Or would you say it's actually harmful? It's delaying a lot of young adults from becoming fully independent. It is hindering these people, their transition to adulthood. I want you to give that some thought. Give us a call. How old were you when you left the nest? Okay, let's start there. How old were you? What was going on in your life? When you could say, I live on my own. I don't need my parents anymore. I can take care of myself. That's one question. And then, is it beneficial or is it harmful to have so many Canadians, millions of Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 still living at home with their parents? Almost 60%, 57%, according to this report today. 20 to 24-year-olds still living at home with their parents. What do you think about that? The number to call again, 1-833-668-2577. And a reminder, if you've never called before, just mention that, and we will make your call a priority. I'm Rob Snow. This is Now You Know. This is Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Intergenerational households is our topic of the day. According to a study released today by StatScan, more than half of Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 still live with their parents. We are asking, how old were you when you started living on your own? How old were you, and what was going on in your life at the time when you could finally say, I live on my own, I don't depend on my parents anymore? And on this number, 57% is the number of 20 to 24-year-olds living at home with their parents. Is it beneficial or harmful that so many Canadians of that age are still living at home with their parents? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Mike is in Guelph, Ontario today. Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hi.
Yeah, good to hear from you, Mike.
Yeah, good to listen to you, too. Okay, yeah. From the time I was 16, that was back in 1970, I hitchhiked across Canada for the next, 3 summers. Really? And then after that, I drove out west, and I was on my own from then on.
Okay. So by what, about the age of 19, you would say you were totally on your own?
I was on my own, yeah.
Okay, yeah. And what were you doing at the time?
Oh,
when you went out west, what did you do?
Well, we tried to start our own business out there, flooring, and then there's a strike on something, so that went to the tube. So I came back here and I went to work in a foundry for a while. So I just switched job to job for a lot of years.
Right.
But it was just all to pay the rent.
Sure. What do you think about this statistic? 57% of Canadians between 20 and 24 years old are still living at home with their parents. Do you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, beneficial or harmful is what I'm asking. What do you think?
Are they going to school or working?
Most of them are still going to school. Most of them are still
going to school.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with that. But if they're just living at home and mommy and daddy are paying the rent,
okay,
that's a different story.
Okay. But you were 19. You were free and clear at 19.
Yeah, but I was on my own every summer, too. I just took off and hitchhiked across Canada for something to do. And I had to make my way across. I didn't have the money to do it. I just picked up jobs along the way.
And what kind of jobs would you have been? What kind of jobs would a 16 or 17-year-old who's hitchhiking across Canada in 1970, what kind of jobs were you doing?
Well, there's carnivals. I worked at Klondike Days.
Really?
I was out there for it. And other odd jobs along the way. You just find...
But the X would roll into town and you would work the X or whatever, right? Okay.
Yeah, whatever. Well, I would roll into town and whatever was there was where I'd work.
Right, okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you. Thanks. Eric is in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Hello, Eric.
Hey, how you doing, Rob?
Hey, long time no hear, Eric. Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I've been on my own for 59 years.
59 years, eh? So how old were you?
16.
16, you were free and clear.
Right now, and
you were free and clear from your parents at 16? Free and clear from your parents at 16?
I was the oldest of 10 kids.
Holy
I wanted to give my parents a break. So I went to the land of opportunity, which was in Ontario, in St. Catharines, Ontario, and I worked in a winery, and I was getting $1.05 an hour. And I'll tell you, after that, I didn't want to have any burden on my parents because they were trying to take care of 9 other people. So if I had to do it all over again, I would have stayed in school and got my education. But I had visual dreams of doing it on my own and standing on my own 2 feet. So it's very harmful for kids to depend upon their parents because parents need a break too. And if they have a big family, it just takes a little bit of some of the slack off them. So I think it's harmful. They should go out there and see what the real world is all about.
You think they should be out there, even 20 to 24 years old? I mean, this would have been a lot older than you back in the day. I mean, 20 to
Yeah,
24
well
years
done.
old, 57%. You think they should be out on their own by that time, even if they're going to school? Even if they're
Well,
going
if
to
they're
school?
going to school and getting an education, that's fine. But if they're
Yeah.
out there and they're dependent upon their parents, that's just like, that's not fair to the parents. I mean, show the parents that you can stand on your own 2 feet. I mean, I think the parents would be more proud of you if you, stood up and said, okay, this is what I'm doing, Dad or Mom. I want to give you guys a break, and this is what I chose to do.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Good to hear from you. Yep. Thanks, Eric, for the call. Speak soon. Be well. And just like that, we're off and running on Talkback. It's a major new study out from StatsCan today. They release these studies, every few years. Canadians between the ages of 20, 24 years old, it's 57% are living at home with their parents. Is that beneficial or harmful to those 20 to 24-year-olds to at that age to be still living at home with their parents? And how old were you when you started living on your own? What was going on in your life that made that possible? Share your thoughts, please. I'm Rob Snow. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How old were you when you started living on your own? Free and clear, not depending on your parents for anything. 57% of Canadians now between the ages of 20 and 24 still live at home with their parents. Is that beneficial or harmful for those young Canadian adults? What would you say? 1-833-668-2577. And up next, we have Bill in Halifax. Bill again. Hello, Bill.
Hello, you got me?
I gotcha. Yes, I do.
Oh, good, good. So I left the house when I was just turned 18 and went into the military. I am a dual citizen and I grew up in the States. So I was gone. The only thing I came back for my parents were after my 4 years. I needed a couple of months to get my things together and get a job, and then I was out. I'm in a situation now where I'm a single male, and my daughter is back in the house.
And how old is she?
Bill? She's in her early 30s, and she had been married in a way and had a marital issue and needed some respite. But you know what? In Halifax today, a young person on her type of income cannot afford the cost of living at all.
Right. Okay.
It's just unreachable for most people. So, I feel for the younger people of today. The pickup jobs, as one of your earlier callers were talking about, are not as common as they once were. And with today's market and the way people are hiring for jobs, it's extremely difficult for young people. So I feel for a lot of them. And I know a number of other younger people that are likewise, they're working, but they can't afford the cost of living, and they are living with their parents.
Yeah, yeah. There is a line of thinking. I'm not saying I share it, but there is a line of thinking that having so many young people still living at home with their parents at this age, 20 to 24, it's not good. That this is stunting the growth of these people into adulthood, that they're not learning what it's like to live on their own. Like when you were 18 and out on your own and having to pay your own way and how to figure that out.
Disagree. Yeah,
okay.
Rob, I don't disagree with that at all. I just think that in today's marketplace and society, and with the explosion of housing and cost of living compared to what the earnable wages are for a lot of people, it's totally off balance. And everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people need a little support. I hope that this doesn't last for a long time, but it's at least a buffer to let let my daughter get back on her feet and continue her adventures.
Well, all the best to both of you. Thank you for your call, Bill. Great to hear from you. And thanks for sharing your opinion today. I'm going to have to stop here because if I bring somebody on, you'd only have 30 seconds or so. I want to give everybody lots of time to have their say, but that means, we're just going to have to be a little patient, okay? StatsCan uses the fancy term calls this intergenerational households. It's basically parents living with older children. That's our topic for the day. 20 to 24 years old, 57% still live at home. What do you think about that? Is it beneficial? Is it harmful for those Canadians to be still living at home with their parents? And how old were you when you flew away, when you left the nest and you could say, I'm all on my own? Be right back after the latest breaking news. I'm Rob Snow's Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So we have been asking, how old were you when you left the nest? You were living all on your own. You were not depending on your parents anymore, because there is a new StatsCan report out today. 57% of 20 to 24-year-olds still living at home with their parents. A lot of interesting information in this report. I read it today. It's one of two reports that came out today from StatsCan. The other is on what they call multi-generational households, and that's children, parents, and grandparents. So 3 generations living in the house. I'm going to dig through that tonight, maybe talk about that tomorrow. I lived in a household like that for quite some time. Actually, we had older generations, grandparents, even great-grandparents living in our house from time to time over the years when I was growing up. But in this report, we're talking about 7 million people in Canada. This is the makeup of their household. The most common form of it is an adult child in their 20s, most likely a young man, living with a parent in their early to mid 50s, most likely to be a woman. Much more common in Ontario than it is in other parts of the country. In Ontario, it's about 1 in 4 households. Much less common in Saskatchewan, where it's not quite 15% of the households. In Nova Scotia and Alberta, about 17%, give or take. And StatsCan says these 20-somethings, most of them have never left home. They have never lived on their own. Most of them, not all of them, but most of them have never lived anywhere else except with their parents. They've never rented an apartment. They've never had roommates, let alone ever bought a house. StatsCan says some left home, lived on their own, came back, most likely because of the high cost of housing. But in most cases, these 20 to 24-year-olds who still live with their parents have never lived anywhere else. They've only ever lived with their parents. Is that a good thing? What do you think? 1-833-668-2577. Thanks for hanging in there. Joe in Halifax. Hi, Joe.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Joe. Good to hear from you today, Joe.
Well, we'll see. I hope you feel that way at the end.
Okay.
I moved out when I was 15. And
15? Wow.
Yeah. But, I was pondering the question you asked, and it's almost, I don't mean to be insulting or disrespectful, but it's almost irrelevant, because most of the people that have answered to this point are my age or a little bit younger. I'm in my late 70s, and the paradigm, the challenges and the vicissitudes of life have changed so dramatically that it's sort of like comparing. It's like comparing, bowling and skydiving are both sports, but how do you compare them? They're worlds apart. So, the previous callers are explaining that in our generation, you did what you had to do. I guess we still do that these days as other people, but back in our generation, it was a lot easier to be loosey-goosey, and you could take more chances and be more adventurous. Now everything is so complicated, and we're over-governed. We're ruled on everything we do. We're being herded like cattle. So there isn't the adventurous spirit. The adventurous spirit suffers, and especially if stay at home too long, it retards and arrests the forward maturation process. They're older, you know, the more experiences you have, the more you learn to connect the dots in life, right?
Sure.
So
sure.
But
has society changed? Has society changed so much that people who are 20, 21, 22, 23, 24 just can't afford to take those risks anymore the way, say, you could back?
Just look out your window. Just look out your window. The evidence is right before our eyes. Yeah, it makes it, in some ways, it's tougher. We have a generation of people who really relate to and where convenience is really resonates with them. They can be sold anything on the basis of being convenient. Back in our day, I think people were allowed to develop their own ideas and develop what I would call discernment and wisdom. We learn by doing. You know, the Bart Simpson rule of burning your hand on the burner 10 times before you wait a minute. This isn't worth it.
Right.
So I think we have a society it's almost humanity's become much more dysfunctional in terms of North America and how we grew up. I grew up in the States, and I was on my own young, and then I had to move back with my mother and take care of her. Then I went into the military, and et cetera, and I did all manner of jobs and anything that where I could make money. I've had a bakery. I worked in finance. I worked in banking. I ran a car dealership. I've been in the military. Just whatever was there. But now everyone seems to be guided and specialized, spends a gaggle of money that we can only hope to maybe pay back in 25 years before we learn by doing. So
Okay. I'm going to have to wrap up our conversation. For an irrelevant question, you certainly gave a very eloquent answer to it. I do thank you for your call. Let's move along, though, to Brendan is up next in Nova Scotia. Thank you for calling, Brendan.
Hey, how's it going, Rob?
Yeah, very well, Brendan. Thank you. What's your opinion here? Your experience?
Well, just my experience, so I guess I'll answer your questions there about how old I was. I was born in 1996, and I moved out of my parents' place and moved to Halifax when I was about 20 with my spouse.
With your spouse? Wow. Right. Married at 20?
Yeah.
Wow.
Common law at the time, but yeah.
Okay. All right.
So she was 19, I was 20 at the time when we moved to Halifax, and this was pre-COVID back in 2018 when we moved. Before then, I was living in Halifax, living on res. I went to St. Mary's University when I was going through university. I just wanted to touch on just the whole thing with people struggling paycheck to paycheck with people my age, especially. We have younger kids ourselves. We actually have 3 now, and we're both 29 and 28. So even with what we make, and I want to say it's probably just shy of about 120, 130K between the two of us yearly. And we still don't have enough money to put down on a down payment on a home. We still can't afford to do vacations. We can't do the extra things that I see other people my age doing in their spare times. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we don't have our parents supporting us financially, because my parents have been out of my life for a long time now due to personal reasons. And my spouse's parents also they're very frugal with their money, so they don't really offer help. So it's essentially just me and my wife trying to make things work financially on our own, and it's hard in this economy to do it. It really is.
Okay. On this question of 20 to 24-year-olds still living with their parents, generally speaking here, beneficial or harmful to be still living at home with your parents at that age?
I think it can be beneficial to help kids save money, but I also think that it could be harmful to teach them, life lessons that they need to learn in their mid-20s on how to survive
responsibility.
on their own.
Okay. Thank you. Got to run. Be right back on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Talking about intergenerational households today on the back of this study by StatsCan that 57% now of Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 years old are still living at home with their parents. Most of them have never left the nest. How old were you when you left the nest? You were all on your own. Clarissa, also in Halifax today. Clarissa, lots of calls from Halifax today. Hi there.
How are you?
I'm good, Clarissa. Good to hear from you.
Can you hear me all right?
Hear you
wonderful.
just fine, Clarissa. Yep, go ahead.
So I left the nest early. I was probably just before my 17th birthday, but I grew up in Winnipeg, and the cost of living was a lot less. I mean, for $10 an hour, I could afford an apartment with a roommate for $600 a month. So on $18,000 a year earnings, I could have an apartment and have a life and have free time and have all those things. And now, as a mother of a child who's just graduated, I'm all right. I'm all right with him staying at home as long as necessary, because the reality is the vacancy rates are very small, and the average cost of a one-bedroom apartment in Halifax is like $1,600, where the minimum wage is, nowhere close to achieving and making that achievable for him. Multi-generational households, I think that's wonderful. You look at countries like, Japan and Greece, they have multi-generational households, and they have the, longevity further than most other countries. So I think that it's not a bad thing. Now, in terms of preparing them for life, I have heard of people who are older than me that have, more mature children in their 20s and so on that are still living at home. And what they do is they've set them up properly, and they're collecting, quote unquote rent from them for staying at home, but they're banking that so that then when they are ready and stable in their careers, they have the down payment for the home that they need. So I think in the environment that we live in here in Nova Scotia, that's kind of the only way that our kids are going to succeed. And they're fortunate if they've got family members that are willing to support them in that way, because the reality is they've got to earn $50,000 a year right off the bat in order to be able to afford a one-bedroom apartment. And how many 17, 18, 19-year-olds do you know that are coming out of school earning $50,000 a year? Not many.
Okay. So I just say there's a line of thinking. I'm not saying I share it, but that the longer children are living at home, the worse it's going to be for them, that they're not building the same kind of habits or a sense of responsibility or financial discipline, having to balance a household budget every month,
I think that if they have proper guidance from their parents or their guardians or whoever it is that they are spending time with, if they have the guidance and the understanding that this is what it costs to live and you don't have the money to do what it takes to live. So what we're going to do is we're going to start preparing you. So we're going to teach you about budgeting. We're going to teach you about what costs are coming to you, and also teach you how to save. And if that means let's practice you paying rent, whether it's just a portion of what the average is, it is still that practice of managing money, that practice of I have to be prepared to put this money out. So I don't think it's a bad thing. I don't think that we should be so hard on these 20-somethings that are living at home, because the reality is they don't have other options. So if they are at home, they are fortunate. But again, the practice of preparing them for
there must be options, because that leaves 43% of them who aren't doing it. There must be options, because this means 43% of them are not doing it, and they're figuring it out somehow. Okay, I got to stop here. Thank you, Clarissa. Be right back. It's Talk Back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How old were you when you started living on your own? totally on your own. You're not relying on your parents anymore. It's 57% now of Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 still live with their parents. Is that a good thing or a bad thing that so many young Canadians are still living at home with their parents? Have your say. Let's go to Vicky, I believe, is up next in Halifax today. Vicky.
Yes,
Hi,
Halifax
Vicky.
is invading. Hi, Rob. I was 23.
23,
when my
okay. All right.
parents moved, and actually I really wasn't ready, so I moved in with a boyfriend. It was a so-so relationship. He ended up leaving with the futon, the futon cushion, and I only had the futon frame.
Oh my
so
God.
it wasn't very good. So I think it can be very beneficial to stay, a few more years, get your student loans paid down if you have any, because the longer you can stay with them, as long as you are studying or working. The big thing, Rob, I think, is getting out of the house and actually socializing. If you're living with your parents, but you're still socializing, connecting, making friends, maturing, it can be a very, very good thing for the young ones because of the cost of living is atrocious. Yeah, I mean, some are doing it, Rob, but they're accumulating huge amounts of debt to live on their own.
Right, or they're not making much financial progress because so much of the household budget is going to rent, I guess, right?
100%. I mean, if they're on their video games and smoking a little bit of grass there all the time and they're not connecting with people or developing or making use of the time at home, then that's a problem. But it's not enabling if you're trying to give them a good foundation so that they can have a good life when they do leave.
All right. Thank you, Vicky. Good to hear from you. Let's take, well, I think this is our first call today, which is a rarity from Calgary. The people from Calgary are usually in on the conversation earlier than this. But Mike. Hi, Mike.
Hey, how are you today?
I'm good, Mike. Good to hear from you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I left the house when I was 17. My parents divorced. I went into the Army for 2 years, and then I got out and I got a job with Chrysler. I was very fortunate. I lived in General Motors town in Ontario for a while, and then worked for the city of Toronto for transit for 5 years, and got out of there and moved to Calgary here in my late 20s. Got married here in 1985, and then I worked for the city of Calgary for 30 some odd years as a bus driver. But, back in the days of those days, I'm talking, 65 and up through the 70s were the best years of our lives. And you could get a job almost anywhere with some education or little education. I was unfortunate. I left school when I was young, but I got my education later. I went back to school on my own, went to university, took a few courses just because it was something to do. But to these kids, unfortunately, they didn't have the same upbringing as you and I did back. I don't know how old you are, but back in those days. Today,
mid-50s now, yeah.
They sit in the house and stuff like that, play on the computers. Yeah, they live with their parents because you know what? They can't afford to go and buy a house or get and find places on their own. Rent and cost of food, rent, vehicles, everything has doubled in price.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm trying to get at is there going to be a long-term consequence of this, having so many people staying at home for so long?
Well, until wages and everything else comes up to par with the cost of living, yes, kids are going to be, unfortunately, and it's not just Caucasian, it's of all ethnics and stuff like that.
Of course, yeah. In fact, Stats Can even breaks it down. It's much more common of people from certain backgrounds. This is the most common living arrangement for people from Southeast Asia, for example.
Yep. What happened over the years with Caucasians is we left the nest early. Even back in the days in the 70s, those that were 20, 25 years old left the nest and got a job and looked after themselves. Today, the Caucasian people, we're the minority, and we can't afford to leave the houses today.
Okay, gotta go. Thank you. That's hour number one, a full hour just ahead, and all the phone lines are free now. Jump on.
It's time to talk back.
On Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Call now.
And have your say.
1-833-668-2577.
Welcome to Talk Back, hour number 2. I'm Rob Snow. Very busy first hour on this topic today, intergenerational households. We've been building a conversation around a study released by StatsCan this morning that says more than half of Canadians, 57% between the ages of 20 and 24 years old, are still living at home with their parents. So we've been asking questions like, well, how old were you when you started living on your own? How old were you? What was going on in your life? You know, when you reach that point when you could say, well, I'm living on my own. I don't depend on my parents anymore. And this trend, and it's been in place for many, many years now, of 20 to 24-year-olds still living with their parents. Is it beneficial or is it harmful? Okay, what would you say to have so many Canadians, almost 60% really, of 20 to 24-year-olds still living at home with their parents? Or is it just the nature of things now, and this is life, and this is what you have to do? 1-833-668-2577. I was trying to think back this morning. Like, the older I get, the harder it is to remember these things. But I was trying to think back this morning. How old was I? How old were you, Rob, when you were out living on your own and not relying on your parents? I want to say 22, 23, probably closer to 23. I hadn't lived full-time at home since I was 19. I graduated from high school in Nova Scotia, started going to university in Ontario. And those first few years, I went home during the summer. I had it pretty good. My parents were actually paying a lot of my bills. Not most of my, like a lot of my bills. I was living with roommates in Ottawa in an apartment. But then life comes at you fast. Family circumstances change. And that just wasn't possible for me anymore. And I was more or less kind of cut loose. I was gently kicked out of the nest, if you will. And I was basically told, Rob, you're on your own. If you want to go to school, you'll have to get a loan and you're going to have to get a job. That's just life sometimes. And I probably spent a good 7 or 8 years just kind of aimlessly flying around, worked a lot of different minimum wage jobs before I finally came to the conclusion, if I don't figure out what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, I'm going to do these jobs that I hate for the rest of my life. And I went back to school when I was almost 30. Best decision I ever made. But all of that was set into motion when I was about 22 or 23. And I would say by the time I was 23, I was on my own. I was living in the big city. I was renting an apartment, lived with roommates, working, trying to go to school at the same time. Didn't have a car, took the bus everywhere, had a bus pass. What about you? What about you? And what about this idea? 20 to 24 years old, you know, it's way more than half now are still living at home with their parents. Is that necessarily a good thing? That's all I'm asking. Or is it, as I say, it's just, it's a necessity now? 1-833-668-2577. Riza in Calgary. I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize in advance. Hi there.
No, that's good. Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. Good to hear from you. What's been
I
your
always
experience?
enjoy listening to you. I'm always on the road, and if I have opportunity, I have a reception, I listen to your radio. It's a great show. Thanks for the
Thank you.
opportunity.
My pleasure.
I think pleasure's mine. I think kids have it tough these days. I got out of home when I was 18, and I never been back. But right now, I can't blame them. Yeah, but what I can say is that it really depends on the kid. I have friends, their kids are home, and they take advantage of that, and they don't get any education from their parents that is necessary for them to take more responsibility in life. And my daughter was home, and now she's not with us anymore, but she was trying to give it that kind of support until she finds something for herself. So I think it's a very difficult. You can't write the prescription for everyone. Every kid is different, but I think education is quite important. That's why they need to get out. And it's a struggle, but as long as they know their parents are always there to support them, they would do better. You shouldn't be too critical if they stay home we have to see why they're home. Is it job market? Is it their mental? There's something going we don't understand. But
Maybe. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's a yes or no. It depends on the kid, depends on the family. But I
Okay.
love to see my kids more often.
How is it that you managed to move out at 18? Like, what was going on in your life at the time that you could do that?
Yeah, so it was war. I'm from Iran. I had to go to military service.
Okay.
And after that, I went to Europe for education, got married, and
My gosh.
I never went back. So in that sense, I was very fortunate to be able to make it, but I never got any support from my parents. Nothing. Zero. That's their blessing. That's all I got. And
Okay.
I'm quite happy. You know, when you get
That's good.
older, when you reflect, it's kind of a take pride. You did it yourself, and that's okay.
Oh, sure. Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Great point. Razy, you call back anytime. Thank you. Bye-bye. Dave in Cochrane is up next. Hi, Dave.
Hi, I wanted to talk. I heard you talking a little bit about the Liberals' proposal to tax equity.
Well, yeah, we were talking about that an hour ago, sir. That's not really the topic right now. No.
Oh.
But what you know?
Sorry, I just caught the end of it then. I guess that's what I wanted to talk about. So.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah. I mean, the Liberals, they've studied it in the past. What do you think they're going to do it?
Well,
I don't think they're going to do it.
I wanted to ask you, were you talking like they were going to try and put it in the budget this year or not?
No. I'm just saying there's an organization called Generation Squeeze out in British Columbia that has long advocated for that, for a tax on home equity. So if you sold, your own personal residence, you would have to pay a capital gain tax on, the proceeds that you garnered from the sale of that home. Now, they've studied in the past. They spent about $500,000 in the past studying it, but I think it would be politically for them be very damaging if they ever tried to do something like that. But that's what we were talking about that.
I hope the Liberals, and I'll just end it with this, I hope the Liberals that voted them in the East Coast provinces, that I hope they even understand what it'll do to their home equity and that they would say no, and then that would end it. But all right, well, thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure, sir. My pleasure. I'm glad I could, shed some light on that for you. Little off the topic today. Join the discussion here. Intergenerational homes. 20-somethings living at home with their parents. 1-833-668-2577. Lots of lines available there for you, folks. We won't be too long at all. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
How old were you when you first moved out? You were on your own. You weren't relying on your parents anymore. We've been talking about this report from StatsCan that's out today. One of two major reports from the agency released today. 57% of 20 to 24-year-olds still living at home with their parents. 57%. As I mentioned, it kind of skews male. And the young men who are still living at home with their parents, StatsCan says they're mostly single men not in a couple, is how StatsCan describes it. I think that means like a married couple, if you will. For adult children still living at home who are even older than those in their 20s, say adult children living at home in their 30s, it skews even more male. It's like 65% of the adult children, say 35 to 39 years old, are men. And StatsCan says a couple of things going on there. First of all, more young men are unemployed than young women. That's one thing. And StatsCan says women enter what it calls, I love this government talk, co-residential unions. Co-residential unions, which is I guess a fancy way of saying women living with their romantic partners. They do that at a younger age than men do. Basically, men stay single longer than women. That's not me saying that. It's StatsCan saying that. And StatsCan also breaks it down by ethnic background. For example, StatsCan says this living arrangement is quite common among people from Southeast Asia, also the Middle East. It's around 1 in 3 households has an adult child living at home. The Caribbean, it's about 27%. Not as common, but still about 1 in 5 households, around 20% for people of European background. And it breaks it down even more, and it looks at very specific ethnic and cultural groups. Somali, the most common, almost 40%. Afghan, Sri Lankan, Tamil, Lebanese, and Filipino, top 6. Among indigenous, 17% Inuit have the highest prevalence of intergenerational living, 19%. Study says if you're 20 to 24 years old and you still live with your parents, you're less likely to be employed. If you're that age and you don't live with your parents, you're more likely to have a job, probably because you need the job because you're not living at home with your parents. 1-833-668-2577. Donna is up first here in Calgary. Hi, Donna.
Hi, Rob.
Hi, Donna.
Thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, my pleasure, Donna. Hi. What's your opinion here? Your experience?
Okay, so I moved out from home when I was 18, and I was brought up in a household where everyone had to, pull their weight, and I worked, even when I was in school, I think I had odd jobs, babysitting, working in the corner store, the pizza shop, chambermaid, since I was probably 12 years old. So by the time I did leave home, I was able to support myself the best I could, and I think it's important that these days, because it's so hard for young people to find jobs, and more, teenagers, 20s, 30s are staying at home. My only comment on all that would be, I get it. I understand there's so many factors that contribute to that. But these days, if you're 16 years old, you can drive. If you're 18 or 21 or whatever the number is in different provinces, you can drink. You're legally able to vote, all those things. So what number makes you an adult? So if you're already past those stages of the game and you're living at home, you're an adult, which means you want to stay home, then you better not be sitting in the corner playing on computer games. You should be pulling all the weight in your parents' house, so that then when you do leave home,
so do you think they should be paying, say, whatever, rent, part of the utilities, contributing to the grocery bill, stuff like that? Is that what you mean?
It would be good. Well, it would be good if they could, but if they can't afford it, then they should be doing all the work in the house. They should be doing everything they can to support the household without financial support, if they can do everything else. The father needs to, you need to fix the backyard, your chair broke, your electric, something happens in the house, they need to be responsible. They should also be paying some sort of rent if that's possible. They need to be responsible so that when they move out, they know how to live. There's no courses that teach people how to be financially responsible and how to live as an adult. In school, they never taught that. So I think that those kinds of things would add to them being more responsible.
Okay. Thank you, Donna. Great points all around. Not much to argue with you there. Be right back with more of your calls on the 20-something still living at home. What about you? What's your experience? When'd you leave? You say, I'm out of here and make my own way. 1-833-668-2577. Talk back on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talk Back on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
The topic of intergenerational households today. Alan is up next. Hi, Alan. You're on the air, Alan. What's your experience? What's your opinion here?
Hi, Rob. I left home when I was 19. When I graduated high school, I was 18, and I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I thought I would work for a while. I really wanted to travel, so I got actually 3 jobs. I worked a full-time job during the day, worked in restaurants at night, Monday to Friday, and then picked up 2 shifts on a weekend pumping gas back when we used to do that. traveled around the world for about 9 months, and when I came back, I got a job. And back then, housing was, much more affordable than it is now. And at 21, I was able to purchase my first home. But when I think about it, what I made back then and what a house cost, it was like a year and a half salary. So I know that you could never do anything like that now, and I feel badly for it. But it's a different time for sure.
Yeah. So how do you feel about these 20 to 24-year-olds and so many of them still living at home with their parents? It's 57%. That means, more than 40% are not. What do you think about that?
Yeah. It is a lot. I can certainly see if you're attending school or university or wanting to get a further education, then it certainly makes an awful lot of sense. It's almost impossible to go to school and pay for that on your own.
Right.
What I don't like to
But is
see,
it
I think
impossible to, move out? I'm sorry, Alan. Is it impossible to, move out, find an apartment, get some roommates, take the bus, eat craft dinner, do all the things that we do? Is it impossible?
Yeah. I don't know that it's impossible, but I think that some of the younger generations have to be prepared to work for it. Also, when I think back, some of the vehicles that I used to own were junk, but they got me by. I see a lot of younger generations seem to want to have, a nice vehicle and all these things. I really, was more concerned about getting a good job and getting a house before I was worried about getting all the material things. And even when I did get a house, I did have roommates. So in my generation, when we grew up, if you wanted something, badly enough, you would work hard for it. And if it meant that you had to work 2 jobs or whatever, that's just what you did.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, good to hear from you, Alan. Good points all around. Christy in Calgary. Christy.
Hello.
Hi,
good
Christy.
Afternoon.
Hi there. What's your opinion? What's your experience?
I am one of those parents who does have a 20-year-old living at home. He's going into his 3rd year of undergrad, so he is a student. But this summer, he's working, has a part-time job. And, what I can tell you is that I actually really love the situation. It works well for our family dynamic. We all get along.
Okay.
He helps out around the house.
Okay.
Me and my husband like to travel, so we have a built-in, pet sitter, house sitter. He can look after his younger brother. I think it doesn't limit his responsibilities, but I think in today's economy, I think that it's just the new reality we have to face. But your question about, is it affecting them? I don't know if it really does. I mean, if you ask someone who moved out when they were 30, did it affect their development or their, whatever it would be? I don't think that you have to put a magic age on things. And so I think that if these kids can save up, then why not let them live at home?
Fair enough. Popular opinion today. Thank you, Christy, for sharing yours. Be right back after the latest breaking news with more of your calls on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
Intergenerational households. That's what we've been talking about today. In a study released by StatsCan, more than half, 57%, of Canadians between the ages of 20 and 24 are living at home with their parents. How does that compare to your life? How old were you when you were out on your own, not relying on your parents anymore? And is this a good thing or a bad thing to have millions of Canadians this age still living with their parents? Almost 60%. Right back to it. Andrew is up next. Andrew's calling from Calgary today. Hi, Andrew. Thanks for waiting.
Thank you. Happy Thursday to you, Rob.
Yeah, my pleasure to hear from you today. What do you think about all of this?
I think that we are stuck in sort of an old-fashioned way of thinking. In North America, we tend to poo-poo this idea of kids staying at home when they're supposed to go out, they're supposed to get a job and be independent. But with the way the world is changing, we should be open to the idea that this might be a really good thing, and we should look for the benefits that come with, having our kids stay at home longer. So your callers have already pointed them out, and I think that's fantastic, and we should probably embrace that sort of thing.
What are the benefits as you see them? Because I am asking if it's beneficial or harmful, and you see benefits here. What are they?
Yeah, I mean, we could look at it positively. And we had your last caller was talking about a pet sitter and a house minder, and that's fantastic. I think creating that bond within the family structure is probably something we should reinforce, countrywide. It's probably not something we're doing actively, but having them at home might just do that and increase the idea of, parents won't be able to retire and look after themselves. They'll be put in a home and whatnot. Well, we keep those bonds nice and strong. Then the kids go, you know what? We'll develop our basement. You stay with us because we're family. And, that kind of keeps that whole foundation strong.
Keeps the unit together. Keeps the unit closer. Right? Okay. Yeah. We haven't heard that yet today. It's an interesting take.
For those benefits.
Sure thing. That's why I ask, is it beneficial or harmful? Beneficial is always one of the options, right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you for having your say. Yeah, it's a great take. And in fact, as I said, this is one of two reports that was released today. We're going to kind of dig into the other one tomorrow, I hope, during the Friday free-for-all. The other one, this one was about intergenerational households and older children living with their parents. The other report that was released today, I haven't had a chance to go through it all and kind of digest all the material. I want to read it when I get off the air today. The other is about multi-generational households. Children, parents, grandparents, all living in the same house. And what the dynamics are there, how many Canadians, that's the makeup of their household. Now, to have 3 generations living in the house. I lived in a household like that for a while I was growing up. We had grandparents, we had even great grandparents living in our house for some time. To Corey up next, I believe. Is it Corey? Yes, Corey.
Good afternoon, Rob.
Hi,
How's
Corey.
it going?
Just great. Corey, what's your experience, your thoughts on the topic here?
Well, this is a great topic. I moved out very early. Come from a white family, and everything is about independence and responsibility and getting your own place and making it out on your own. I think I was distilled with, integrity and work ethic when I was a kid, and that I think that really helped me move out and just become a career-oriented person. I think for me, growing up in the 80s, I only made $3 an hour, but I knew I couldn't afford like a $1,600 place on my own, so I moved in with friends. And then when there wasn't a job that I wanted, like I was into advertising and marketing, I took a labor job. Like there's tons of jobs out there. You can get a labor job tomorrow. Anybody that's home when they're 24 or above and not going to school or doesn't have a job is just, in my eyes, lazy. And if you stay home for that long, then you lose responsibility, you don't learn it, and you lose reliability. No one can rely on you to actually do something or show up. So, I mean, that's how I feel.
So the previous caller said, let's look at the benefits. It's the family unit can become stronger, tighter, closer, more shared responsibilities in the house. I could certainly see that point of view. I think I'm getting a different vibe from you. You think there's some downside here. Like maybe to development, personal responsibility?
As I'm Caucasian. Like we were brought up to move out, get your own place. That was the goal. I think for Europeans in East Asia, it's about family orientated and moving out with your family, saving your money, and then buying something better. I honestly think I wish I would have stayed home longer to maybe get the things that I wanted or I needed in life earlier. It took me forever to get there because I went out so young independently.
So early. Yeah. So how old were you?
Well, my dad kicked me out of the house when I was 14.
Oh, wow. Holy cow. Yeah. So there must have been some, must have been, yeah. Okay. I don't want to get too personal there, but I just,
No,
I get it.
I lived on the street for a year, and then I moved back home and smartened up. But
right. Okay.
But I think living at home can be great, but you got to have some goal in mind, like university, college, a career, like, moving into something. But if you're home and just doing nothing, then you're just lazy and you have no work ethic whatsoever.
Get a haircut and get a real job. Right. Gotcha. Thank you, Corey. I'm glad it's worked out for you in the end. It doesn't sound like it was an easy start in life for you. 1-833-668-2577. To jump in on this one today on Talkback on News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
So let's get back to our callers on intergenerational households. Today, our topic, Matt is calling today from Calgary. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Rob. How you doing?
I'm just great, Matt. Share your experience and your thoughts, please. Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I moved out of my house at 22, out of my parents' house, and went to university. Before that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do, so living at home was definitely beneficial for me. Okay. I believe that part of our solution to our housing issue is multi-generational living. It's common so many other places in the world, but not common here, as some of your other callers have said. And I called because I wanted to make a point that I heard one of your other callers make. I think it was Donna. And she said that if she has a kid living at home, that she expects the kid to do all the work if they're not working. It's not a child's job to be responsible for their parents. Now, a child can help with their parents, if assuming that they're living in a household where that's encouraged. But I think that we live in a society now that's too focused on consumerism, and we don't have contentment enough. And so we always want to buy bigger and buy up and all of that, when truly we can find contentment just, finding other ways to be happy than living on our own, or as another caller said, there's a lot of happiness to be found in a multi-generational household.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to explore that topic, I hope, with people's help tomorrow, and dig into this other report that was out today on that. I'd be curious to see and get some thoughts from the callers on that. So when you moved out at 22, I mean, were you still relying on your parents to a certain extent? Were you on your own and just kind of making your own way?
I was relying on my parents to an extent, for sure.
Okay.
When it came time to buy a first house, my parents provided me with a loan, and on their line of credit, so it's cheaper than perhaps somewhere else I would get that kind of money from.
Sure.
And so that's where I'm kind of rooted in the fact that it's not a child's responsibility to take care of their parents. And if you have kids, you're responsible for them for their life, even if that means into adulthood. And if you can help out, then that kind of breeds the desire for a child to help a parent out in the future when the parent reaches retirement. We're in a cost of living issue, and I'm a teacher. The biggest issue that I hear from kids is not what are we going to do after high school, it's how am I going to afford my life. And so,
okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
I don't know. I got lots of points to make, but thanks for your time. I don't want to take up any more
I
of it.
appreciate it. Thank you, Matt, for your call to Kitchener today. Annie is in Kitchener. Hi, Annie.
Hi, Ron. And I got to say, I love your show.
Well, thank you. That's very nice.
I left home at 17 and went to Australia.
Wow.
And I had relatives there, so I stayed there for a month. But then in South Australia, and I decided I'm going to Sydney because that's where it's all happening. And I got off the train, walked into Woolworth's store, and I got a job. I got a place. I traveled throughout the country at 17 years old. And I had a lot of experience at work because I had my first job at 12. And then later on in life, I came back to Canada, and I ended up being a single mom at the end, but I was a very successful mother. I had 4 jobs. I took care of my kid. I paid for my daycare. And eventually I wanted a job, and this place, we're not hiring women, so I am one of the first in Ontario to get into the beer store in 1983. And I bought my own home on my own. And then Sundays came, so I decided to put my Sunday payment towards my mortgage, which I paid off in 15 years. And so I was a go-getter. I always had 3 or 4 jobs. And but the kids today, I got this on my own, but it's barely impossible for them. So I don't have a problem with letting the kids stay home. Let them save their money, because otherwise they're not going to have anything. They just can't afford it. And
you don't think a 20 to 24-year-old could have the same kind of go-getter attitude that you had at 17?
No.
No?
I don't know. I don't know.
Is life that stacked against them now?
I think if you want it so bad, I wanted all of this in my life. I had that job at 12, and I was working already waitressing, getting experience. And then I kept going. Then I went to the restaurants. Then I went to Kmart, and I kept working. And I worked 7 days a week. It didn't matter. And my whole goal was then I needed a private pension when I was 24 years old. And I said, I got to find that job. And I got that job, and I was there for 35 years.
Okay. All right. Thank you for your call. I'm glad life has had its rewards, because it sounds like you worked very hard for it. Thank you again. Be right back with a few more calls, and then we'll wrap up today on Talkback. This is News Radio.
Have something on your mind you want everyone to know?
Call now.
Hello.
1-833-668-2577.
It's Talkback on Now You Know with Rob Snow.
On multi-generational households, kids staying at home longer. Rick up next. Hi, Rick. You're on the line.
Hey, Rob.
What's
how
your
you doing?
experience? Just great, Rick. Thank you.
Good.
Share your
First-time
thought,
caller.
please.
Love your show.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Now, there's a few of your callers I disagree with. There was one in particular that I really agreed with. The ones about saying that the younger generation, don't have the go or anything to try and get ahead or anything. I don't agree with that. But the one caller that said the family unit, I so agree with that. My stepdaughter and her husband, they live with us. We decided that to benefit us all, that we were going to purchase a house all together, and it is working amazing with us. They have children, so the grandkids, they live with us, and the family unit is unbelievably tight. It's a wonderful thing. My wife and I, we have the finished basement, and then we share the common area on the main floor, and then the daughter and the son-in-law and the grandkids are upstairs. It's such a wonderful thing, and we agreed to do all this to make things a little easier for us. Of course, we're getting up in age, and also to give them a leg up, a great start for setting up their future. So it's working amazing for all of us, and it is.
So how many people do you have living in this old compound of yours there, Rick?
Yeah, well, there's the wife and I, and then the daughter and her husband, and then the 2 little grandkids, and it's so amazing, amazing. Yeah, it's really gotten us really close, and it's a great thing.
Good. All right.
Yep.
How many vehicles do you have in your driveway?
Well, one in the garage, one in the driveway, one on the street, and then the son-in-law company truck. So, and then in regards to, with them not trying to, have the ambition to get anywhere where they want to get nowadays, the stepdaughter, she went through college, and now she has a successful career in healthcare. And the son-in-law is halfway through his apprenticeship to become a licensed electrician. So they're so well on their way, and it's great. It really is. It's a wonderful thing. So,
well, thank you, Rick. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's all worked out there. Sounds splendid. I think Mary's going to get the last say on this topic today. Mary in Calgary. Hi, Mary.
Hi, better last than never.
That's okay. It's great to hear from you. Share your thoughts, please. We're just a little tight on time here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm going to talk about my 33-year-old daughter. She started work as soon as she was done high school, and we encouraged her to stay at home until she could afford to buy her own place, have a down payment. She saved her money, and we had a good relationship at home, so I was more than welcome to have her stay at home. But my main focus was her to get that down payment. I didn't want her paying somebody else's mortgage.
Yeah, fair enough. So you would dismiss these. There is a line of things. Again, I said I don't share it. That it could stunt the growth into adulthood of some people.
I don't believe that.
You don't believe it?
I believe no, I don't believe that I didn't want to kick her out.
Right.
She worked hard. You know, we have a good relationship. Why would she move and pay, $1,600 or whatever it was? How was she going to get ahead by paying that kind of money for rent?
Okay, but why not, go rent an apartment, get some roommates, explore life without living under your roof? What was wrong with that?
Because she would be paying for somebody else. Even if she shared that cost, it would still cost her like maybe $400 or $500 a month. Right. And if she could sock that away to put a down payment on a unit for herself, and she's building equity now, right?
Okay, I got you. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Glad we could get you in there right at the end. The best for last, Mary. All right, that's it for Talkback for today. Tomorrow is the Friday free-for-all, so we'll follow your lead. Just pick a topic and we'll roll with it. The latest breaking news next on News Radio.